Discovered, the podcast. And I am an alcoholic and an addict.
And I'm Sam. I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
And remember, you need to be tenacious about your recovery if you want to stay sober.
So it is with great pleasure that I introduce a longtime friend, honestly a brother. I would consider him a brother to me. Big brother, Rick Bradley. Rick, how's it going?
Great. I'm Rick. I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
Hey, Rick.
I'm glad this is a podcast because right now I'm blushing. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, of course,
right.
buddy. I've wanted to have Rick on for so long, but given the current climate of his life, it's not very easy to always tie people down to a time. So I really appreciate you. What time is it? What is it? 11 a.m. on a Wednesday afternoon to kind of come on and share your story with us. I know what I like to think is a considerable amount about your story, but that's probably not true. Just because we've been such close friends for so long, I feel like you hear tidbits about people's life, especially when you have like an intimate friendship.
Bits and pieces, sure.
Yeah, like you know, and you kind of like also, I guarantee you, people who are close to me could tell you a lot about the way I was raised because I talk about it a lot, being a recovering alcoholic and being able to like formulate why I am the way I am back to early parts of my life. And I've always had that image, that depiction of you, but I've never actually had the privilege of hearing you tell it from start to now.
Yeah.
And I've, so like, let me hear it, brother. Start from the beginning.
Sam.
Yeah.
Well, again, I'm Rick. I'm an alcoholic addict.
All right.
And kind of to your point, Sam, I think even in alcoholism, even in recovery, I do this as much as I did in active alcoholism. I show the world what I want them to see, kind of thing.
Of course.
And in all my time in recovery, and I have a little over 13 years. My sobriety date, September 10th, 2012. September 10th, 2012. My alcoholic fear kind of manifests in different ways. So it's
For sure.
It's like, and you've seen it come out, man. You've seen it over the years. Like, it's like,
Yeah,
it
I
comes
think the
out in stress.
alcoholics that you're closest with, you get to know their defects. You know what I mean? Because they come up more
We're all human.
more regularly than we care to admit. Like I always tell people the way, like I don't have the desire to drink, so my alcoholism is completely a product of my defects of character today and how they're
1,000%,
managed on a day-to-day basis.
Yep. Yeah. So, and that's kind of what it looks like today. And I think you've had a front row seat to, some of my defects of character. We've worked closely together. We've become friends. So, it is pretty cool to jump on here and be able to kind of go back to the beginning and, share with you and the rest of the world kind of how I got here. So, I'll bring it back if you guys are okay with that.
Sure.
Please
as far
do.
as you want.
So I grew up local, Delaware County. I think we all have this idea of what an alcoholic is growing up or a drug addict. It's like this kind of put it in a box. People from broken homes or traumas or all this shit, things that made them like, use the way they did and drank the way they did. But I'm an only child. I didn't want for anything. My dad, he was around, but he worked a lot. He did what he could. Grew up very blue collar. We had enough. We had just enough, but. From a very early age, I had unrealistic expectations on kind of like what life should look like. I remember my mom would tell me, like, you want to be the smartest kid and not study. I want to be the best at basketball and not practice. I want the nicest car and not work hard.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, And that was a habit that I didn't know it at the time, but it was a way of thinking. It was like a defect of character that ultimately led me to the bottle, to drugs. Didn't manifest like that as 12 years old, but that's kind of where it was heading.
Yeah, the alcoholic ego was like alive and well before it even started.
Right. Before your teen years.
Yeah.
But you don't see it like that when you're a teenager.
No.
You don't. You just think it's like, it's that because you don't know how everybody else thinks. You think that,
You think you do.
You think you do, but you don't. So I don't know that everybody else isn't running on unrealistic expectations and self-centered fear the way I am. So, played sports all through my life up until high school, but this is where I really started to see the addiction take hold. So basketball was my love. I'm playing basketball in high school. And, I have this summer going into, I think it's my senior year. And I mean, my addiction started to take off.
Yeah, what year is this?
Probably 2001 into 2002.
Yeah, so that's like early stages.
Well, I didn't want to
prime
age
opioid
myself, Sam,
epidemic.
but thank you for that.
Sorry, but
You
like,
didn't want to age yourself. I've been sober before you were born.
Yeah, but like-
how's that for aging
Thanks,
yourself?
dude, when I hear about like 2000, honestly, like those years, anything like pre 2017 when opiates were like heavily regulated,
Yeah, absolutely.
like there was this culture amongst what I call shallow suburban towns outside of major metropolitan cities
Sure.
where like the youth, because you're a millennial, right? Technically.
Yeah.
Millennials, like we ate pills, dude. We
That
ate
was
pills
my-
and it was
my high
socially
school experience,
acceptable.
yeah.
You know what I mean? In those socioeconomic areas.
So the whole lawsuit for Purdue Pharma on OxyContin, like my high school should have been a part of that.
100%
Like,
same,
It was
yeah.
all there. We're not thinking it's a big deal. I'm starting to dabble in that stuff in the summer. I get really out of shape. I get a little overweight. I go back to high school, and I'm supposed to be in basketball shape. And my coach is like, "You're fat and out of shape, and you need to go to 2 practices." He wanted me to go to JV and varsity practice. And this is where this was one of my first crossroads where I started to choose addiction rather than like the right path. I was like, "Fuck you! I'm not doing that." And I want to go get high with my friends and do what I want to do. And I quit. One of my loves was basketball, and I chose drugs and alcohol. So I started to see.
Was that it, or was it because your ego was so hit at the
Well, that
thought
too,
of a
yeah.
JV practice?
Well,
'Cause
that
you're
too.
not a JV practice guy,
I had to go to both,
right?
but my
Just to
But just
lose
that's what I'm
some
saying.
weight.
The
just to
thought.
get in shape. Yeah, and you're right. It hit the ego.
Yeah,
it hit
for
my ego.
sure.
Like, do you know who I am?
Yeah,
kind of
dude.
thing. And I just couldn't believe it. So I quit. And this is looking back, going through my step process in my recovery. That was one of the most impactful things for drugs and alcohol to kind of start being bumped up on the priority list. I started to like kind of check off some of the things I loved and cared about. So that was powerful. I look back and see that, and things progressed on, like they all do. But like we were just talking about, like the prescription painkillers, all my friends were starting to get into them. We're thinking they're harmless, not really a big deal. For whatever reason, I was able to kind of stay away from them. But I went into, I had other friends going off to college and doing things like that. And I was like, I don't think I was ready. I think I had enough wherewithal at the time. And I'm like, if I go to college, this is going to be bad. At 18, 19 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
What were you doing? Like weekend warrior drinking,
Yeah,
smoking weed?
It wasn't like a daily thing, but I saw the progression start at like 18, 19 years old.
Yeah, but what was your twist at 18, 19 years old?
So it's probably a lot of alcohol, pills here and there. And I'm watching other friends kind of really struggle and get addicted to the pills and go to rehab. And this is where I thought like I had control. I'll do them every once in a while. I'm not going to go get that bad with it.
Yeah.
And then I'll drink like everybody else. But like in the back of my mind, I was like, if I go to college, I'm not making it through.
Oh, you knew this
At least
about
you knew it.
yourself?
Yeah, I knew it. I was like, I'm not making my parents pay for this or take loans out to go flunk out of college because I couldn't even make it to high school senior year. I was sleeping in my car. So I squeaked by high school.
Really?
Thinking, yeah, like I did well in school. I got enough of the credits to graduate. So once I got that, I'm like, all right, I'm good. I'm just going to sleep in my car and really not do much. So, I kind of had enough of a mindset to know that, like, yeah, if things aren't going to go well. But I get into the bar scene and I'm drinking like a fish. And at 21 years old, putting back bottles of Crown Royal, which really like isn't too normal,
Yeah.
And then,
It is in the bar scene.
but
Bar
yeah.
scene breeds alcoholics, dude.
And I know you were big in that too. And
Of
it's
course,
it's
yeah. It was the greatest thing ever. It co-signed my shit. What do you mean? It was a career that co-signed my sickness. I could stay out. I could stay up till 8 o'clock in the morning on a fucking Tuesday
Yeah.
with a group of people that made the way I was living feel normal. You know what I mean? They held that mirror up. I'm like, oh, this is what we do. So this is normal. I wasn't doing it necessarily alone at that point. Sleep until 4 o'clock the next day, wake up, likely still intoxicated, and go do it again.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And you got people to do it with, so it's not really that bad.
That's what I'm
you know?
saying. There's an entire community of people that you're doing it with to make it feel like you're doing something that's normal.
Yeah.
It co-signs your shit.
Yeah, and you're making good money, and you kind of like, as men, like coming into your own at like 21 years old, you're thinking, okay, if you got your own apartment, you're paying your own way, who cares what you do? Do what you want to do with your time. So I did it, and I drank a lot, and it's kind of like it talks about in the big book, like the abnormal became normal for me. You know, like that shouldn't be normal, sleeping to 1 o'clock, drinking, wake up, rinse, repeat. So, you know, at some point I realized, like, shit, I'm drinking a lot. I'm drinking every day. I'm like 22, 23 years old, and I'm living with this roommate at the time. And at this point, I kind of stopped the pills. I knocked that off for a little bit, for a couple of years. But I'm like 22, 23, and I had this like shoulder injury that like couldn't sleep. So my roommate's like, oh, hey, I got some Percocets. Why don't you take these? I'm like, oh, I forgot about these guys. I forgot I like these. These are pretty cool. So I take them like I slept like a baby, and I didn't feel like drinking. So I'm like, all right, this is the answer. I can take these, and I don't need to go out to the bar and drink every night. I'm only spending like $20 a day, or maybe every other day on the Percocets, and it was a great solution for about a month.
Yeah.
For about a month, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I got caught up in that. So, you know, honestly, from about 22, 23 to about the time I got sober at 28, I honestly couldn't even tell you my story. I don't know it. It was whack-a-mole. It was my old sponsor used to call it changing ships on the Titanic. I was just going down on a sinking ship, but it was like
And you held down the bar jobs?
Yeah. So in there, I decided to get out of the bar business like 23, 24. I started working in like a mortgage business. Then I worked in recruiting.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot.
And I did seemingly well in this. Like I kept my addiction like kind of
because when you're on perks, you're an absolute dog.
I was phenomenal.
Of
on
course.
Perks at work. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, it only lasted for so long, and then you couldn't show up, and I would do okay. But that was kind of like where the fear element. I'm like, if I change this job, I'll be okay. Everybody will think I'm okay, and if everybody thought I was okay, then I was okay inside.
Yeah,
you know, that's kind of the thought process that was going on. It didn't really matter how I felt. So I kind of play whack-a-mole, and even from a very early age and into recovery today. My default way of doing things is like I'm always looking for something outside of myself to feel okay. It's never looking for internally to do it.
Yeah, you're looking to like latch on to something to be like, look at what I have.
Yeah.
To like co-sign your success.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard a good line recently at an AA meeting, like the ego loves quantity, the spirit loves quality.
Oh, that is gold.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I thought that was pretty cool because I'm always trying to fill my life up with the things that I think I got to have to be successful. I have like this idea of what success should look like and what my life should look like. And if I can present to the world that I got that going on, I'll be okay inside. And all it did was just like reinforce that endless void that was inside. That's like spiritual void I had inside of me.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know? So, but I'm going to kind of fast forward a little bit. My recovery has been a bumpy one. It's not like I decided I had a problem one day and said, great, I'm not going to do drugs and alcohol ever. Like that admission of powerlessness or like lack of control was very difficult. So going to my first treatment center,
How old was this?
I was 25.
Oh, you were 25 and you went to treatment the first time.
First time, yeah. 24, 25, somewhere around there. And I'm in there for 34, 35 days thinking, wow, I just learned all this magical stuff about me. We talked about my feelings. I did some group. We sung some songs. We had a great time.
I can totally see you taking what you like and leaving the rest.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
I can totally see you doing
so I'm like,
that. Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, we'll do this thing. We played some volleyball on the weekends. I played basketball, played horseshoes. It was great. So I'm like, all right, cool. I got 35 days separation from the drink and the drug. I'm good. It's the longest time I've had probably in 10 years at that point.
Since you were a teenager, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I get out of treatment, and I'm like, all right, great, this thing's behind me. And this kind of brings me to my first taste of, like, powerlessness. I remember being out of treatment maybe 2-3 weeks, and I'm like, I'm going to go see the buddies. I'm going to go show them how good I'm doing. Let me, doing push-ups in rehab. I think I had a pretty girlfriend at the time.
I'm sure.
All those things. And, I got away with it. I went out and saw the buddies, hung out at the bar. Nothing really happened. I'm like, okay, I'm cool. I can do this. Next weekend comes, and I'm like, you know what? I could probably do one or two.
What, drinks?
Absolutely.
Yeah, drinks, yeah.
Well, because in your head, you were probably like, the perks were the problem.
Exactly.
My life was never messy when I was drinking.
I
Yeah.
just got
One
to
or
get
two
back
beers never hurt you.
Yeah.
Just got to get
Then
back
the
to
next
some
time,
controlled
forget it.
drinking. Yep.
Yep.
So if I'm thinking if I can get back to that, I'll be fine. So actually, the first night I had a couple drinks. I'm like, and I was like, left that bar, went home. I'm staying in my mom's basement, mind you. I'm like, all right, I got this. I
See?
can do this.
Yeah.
I got
Right.
this. And I don't know if it was the next day or the next weekend, but the next time I drank was a shit show.
Yep.
I'm
It was
sure.
like a 72-hour event. There was
Oh,
drugs
my
in
God.
there. There was cocaine.
Of
I don't even
course.
know. It was everything. And I remember waking up one morning, and I don't remember if it was a Monday, a Sunday, or a Wednesday. I don't remember. I just remember the feeling of hopelessness I had because 60 days prior, I had gone to rehab and said, I will never be back here again.
Right.
I will never be beaten and broken from drugs and alcohol again. And I was still there. And I was like, shit. There's something else here,
Absolutely.
other than me just saying, I'm not going to do this anymore. So I look back on that, knowing what that is now as my first look at powerlessness in my life. I wish I'd like to stop then, but I tried to do some controlled drinking for some time and
Happens a lot.
do things my way. And Vinny, kind of like that's, I think you had said, but like it was, I keep trying to do things my way. I kept trying to just figure things out, or like whether it's the controlled drinking or going to treatment and coming out with a plan. It's like my need to have to plan. And I think what trips us, a lot of us up, like Sam at your job or Vinny at your job, like we're good at what we do in certain areas of life. But when it comes to the spiritual nature of things, it's like I need spiritual help.
Oh, for sure.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, without that spiritual help, I fall victim to defects of character, fear, negative thinking, catastrophizing, all this shit. And
Yep.
if I'm in those feelings for too long, I look for a way to escape it.
Yeah,
And it's
cue
drugs
in
and alcohol.
resentment. And resentment for me is the killer. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like, all that other stuff just materializes in resentment.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I wish kind of like we had a, maybe like a sign, like I wore a sign around my neck. And one side had a green smiley face and the other side had a red frowny face. And you could basically know how well I was aligned with God at that moment. And it would just flip the sign. And I had no control of the sign.
Right.
The
It flipped on
sign,
its own.
the sign.
Yeah.
I couldn't just tell you or decide if it was green or red. My relationship with God that day, sometimes that hour,
That's good, Sam.
dictated the way. And then my marriage would be flawless if I had that sign. It would be flawless, dude. It literally would, because usually it's me that's the last to know. You know,
Yeah.
I'm usually the last one to know, and I typically can take a step back and be like, oh yeah, I'm like taking credit for stuff again. I'm like taking credit for everything, and I'm trying to put people that I love around me down here in order to continue to take credit, to boost myself back up, to co-sign my fucking bullshit.
It's like ego, too.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
That's all it is ego.
Yeah.
Is to inflate the ego back up. You know what I mean? And then it's big red sign on my chest. I wish it was there, honestly.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think that would be good, man. You should put like an episode of Black Mirror or something.
Definitely.
For that.
Yeah.
That would be cool. Yeah, it's like that egomaniac with an inferiority complex kind of thing. And it's like I have this constant measuring stick I'm doing with myself against the world. And that is so anti-spiritual, you know? And I realized, because when they told me in like rehab the first time, or even when I first stepped foot in the AA meeting, it's like accepting spiritual help or connecting with a higher power. I'm like, what does that mean?
What-
Like,
yeah.
what is that? What does
I
that have
struggled
to
with
do
the
with it?
meaning, too, at first.
Yeah. And yeah, like I don't know what it looked like for you guys, but the God concept, I'm like, I just want to stop drinking. I don't know why we're talking about a higher power or spirituality here. I just got to stop burning my life to the ground, and I got to get some shit in order and get a house and get a wife and get kids
Right.
and do all the things.
Yep.
So I really struggled with that in the beginning.
So you were a big step one struggler?
Yeah.
Like, that you struggled with step one?
It's a good
Or
question.
you knew you were powerless,
I'd
You know
say
what I mean?
when I was on my own, I struggled with step one. When I first started getting introduced to like AA, I'm like, and I started having conversations with guys that had more time, that had some time, or I'm like, dang, man, I really am powerless. You know, manageability was pretty easy because I'd gone to several treatment stays. I had seizures from withdrawal from pills. I had
You a big benzo guy?
like I said, I changed addictions. I was an alcoholic. I was an opiate addict. I was a benzo addict. I was a cocaine addict at one point.
For sure.
I remember, it's funny we're in media. I remember one time driving down the street here, going through withdrawal, not knowing which withdrawal I was going through. Whether
Oh,
it was
wow.
alcohol, benzo,
Wow.
or opiate, because I was addicted to all three. I needed all three.
That sounds
every
like a
day.
really bad day.
And it's one of those things that's burned in my mind that I remember. It's like, that sucked.
So I guess the point that I was making, not necessarily step one, but it's knowing that a power greater than yourself,
Yeah.
you know, humbly ask him to remove these shortcomings, things like that.
Yeah.
Like that, is that where you struggled? Like not knowing like what this God concept was, or,
I think
you know,
he struggled with full surrender.
you know,
Like full surrender.
Yeah, they kind of go hand in hand to what Vinny's point is, okay, if I'm to surrender to the powerlessness piece means, okay, I believe people got past their alcohol problem. So if I'm saying I'm powerless as an individual, how are these people getting past it? Because up till this point, I thought that people were just getting into AA and reading it like a Tony Robbins book.
Right.
Like, it's like they're going to
Right.
get self-help. They're going to
Yeah.
learn some tools. We're going to put some discipline in place, and you're going
Right.
to figure it out. And it was such an alien concept to me that, like, because everything I did up to that point was like, I had to muster the energy, muster the will, and go figure it out. And this was about surrendering of the will, admitting that I'm powerless by myself. And it was very difficult for me to concede that.
I think
gotcha.
it's difficult for most alcoholics to concede that. And I think it's funny how step one, when you go through the steps with a sponsor for the first time, you kind of go through 1, 2, and 3. I don't know about you, but for me, like,
You just have to agree to those first three.
to me, it
Yeah.
was just language, right? Like, it was just language, the third step prayer. None of it really hit super hard until the aha moment of
Right.
step 5, where I was like, oh my God. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? And then you go back to 1 and it hits so much harder. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Because to me, that was the first time I had felt any sort of relationship with God was post step 5. Because
I agree.
I finished step 5, 6 and 7. You know, it's only a couple lines in the book. I always, with my sponsor, went through it in the 12 and 12 and take my sponsees through it in the 12 and
Same.
12. And then like 8 and 9 are right in front of your face. And it all makes so much sense with a thorough fifth. Like it's right there. You know exactly what you need to do. But really, when we go back, you realize how much more this is about than drugs and alcohol.
Absolutely.
This is about so much more than that. You know what I mean? And I think it takes a thorough fifth to build that connection for those first 3 to really hit, you know?
Yeah, I agree. On the 1, 2, and 3 piece, and Sam, you know me. I want to think I'm the smartest person in the room at all times.
Yeah, I mean, you
I
are.
could be in a room with Elon Musk or whoever. It doesn't matter who it is, whatever.
You
Bill
love to
Gates,
qualify
I
yourself.
think I'm the smart. And that's my ego. So 1, 2, and 3, it's like, all right, you're telling me this works. I'm going to dissect this shit out of this
Right.
before. And it's a good friend of ours, Peter, used to say this a lot. Contempt prior to investigation. He would quote that in the big book a lot. Is that like,
Always.
I would have contempt for it. I wouldn't even do it. I
Before
would
you
try
even
and
looked
figure it
into
out.
it.
I'm not even looking
Right.
into it.
Right.
And at some point, my pain got great enough because I really believe, and it's interesting when I watch people try and save alcoholics and addicts from pain, because pain is the catalyst. It's the jumping off point for change. So my pain was great enough that I was like, I got nothing left.
Right.
This 1, 2, and 3 nonsense that you're talking to me about? Sure. What do you got?
Yep.
Yeah.
I find over the years that alcoholics have a much harder time with that than addicts, because, you know, I just feel like an addict gets tired of chasing whatever he's chasing, that high or whatever. And it's, you know, you have to get up every day. You're in debt to go do whatever you need to do to get by.
Yeah.
With an alcoholic, you can get drunk for $6 a day. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So maybe it's a little harder for an alcoholic to kind of come to grips with that. But an addict is just like tired, and they know something's up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. It's
just
why-
my opinion on just how I look at things that I see over the years.
No, and I agree with that. I think working in treatment, you kind of get to see the nuance of how
Of each
people
and every one, yeah.
approach this. And I think the cultural aspect of alcohol versus drugs definitely affects the recovery process for people, because alcohol being more socially acceptable, it's a lot cheaper, it's
Sure.
more accessible.
I mean, it's a part of in some
Yeah,
people's religion.
It's
you know what I
tied
mean?
so tight.
Like,
So when you're a heroin
engraved.
addict going to get
You're
heroin,
still
after
an
that,
outcast.
Yeah.
yeah,
You'll always be an outcast.
you're going to be an outcast, and it's like it's the bottom. You hit that a lot quicker and sooner. It's like the shame, the guilt, all those things.
That's why I just think you're more ready for
Yeah.
like that, step one, and then to proceed. You know what I mean? Than an alcoholic who still thinks like, everybody else is doing it. You know,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
like you said, socially acceptable. And I just think an addict is like, I've had it. I've had it. They're just
Yeah.
tired.
I actually, through my years of doing this, I see like the real, not saying that all alcoholics aren't real alcoholics, but the ones that are just in the throes of it struggle the hardest. Like alcoholics that really just can't get it, and the obsession is so deep and ingrained in them, and like they haven't had that aha moment that I know the three of us have had. They struggle the hardest. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Well, like I said earlier, like I had this ideal, this expectation of what life should look like. I think for many of us, especially alcoholics, alcohol was a big part of that life expectation. I don't think many of us are growing up at 12 years old thinking I'm going to socially shoot heroin or
Exactly.
No,
Or be
yeah,
a
you don't show up to
benzo addict.
Thanksgiving with your mom and dad, and you're like, let's do a couple bags of dope for
Right.
turkey and stuffing.
Before
Like,
we
no,
pray.
dude. But they do want to drink red wine before you
Exactly,
while you
yeah.
eat Thanksgiving. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Seems much more socially accepted.
without
Sure.
a doubt.
Yeah, because look, the fifth step was a powerful thing for me, and it really showed me what made me tick and how much self-centered fear ran my life. So situations like not being able to drink at a family event or with friends made me feel less than, made me feel ostracized. I had these feelings of like fear that I feel like with the addict, that's not necessarily, they're already feeling those fears because
They felt them a long time
a
ago.
long time ago,
Yeah.
So no, like I said, I played whack-a-mole. I feel like I kept my drug addiction closeted more so, but people were aware of my alcoholism. It was easier to kind of say, I just drink too much, I have a drinking problem. But like, drugs couldn't be that. But I was both, People were like,
Same.
I was
Same.
very much an alcoholic. Like alcohol was my love, my baby, my first alcohol.
That was my first love affair.
Yeah.
You know what's funny for me is like I did bags of heroin, and then my girlfriend died, and I left Philly, and I dove into the bar business and literally wore it as a badge of honor that I never used opiates again
Yeah.
and probably wasn't sick, and I was just gonna drink. And little did I know that like alcohol coupled with cocaine was gonna cripple my life harder than any
Right.
of that shit ever
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
You know? That was the problem. And I
Yeah.
rode that for like 5 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah, dude, you know how many places I lived in those 5 years? So many. Like, I couldn't pay my rent. I would literally look you in the eyes and be like, I'm not sick because I kicked heroin. Meanwhile, I'm getting evicted from the second apartment in 2
Same
months.
thing, man.
You know what I mean? Like, I would look you dead in the eyes and wear that shit and tell you, I'm good. I stopped doing
Yeah.
heroin. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, it's crazy how it like manifests like that. That like I did the same thing. I'm thinking if I'm doing the alcohol, it's okay. I just needed to get back to that. But you're talking about the fifth step. It's all the motives behind it. The underlying fear is all the same. It's just like, so, going through the 1, 2, and 3. What got me to do my 4 steps, because I sponsor guys today. It's like you just need to be honest, open-minded, and willing. You don't have to have this relationship with God right now, because my relationship with the higher power is developed over my sobriety. It's different today than it was at year 1, at year 5, at year 8. But it's a connection to the world around me that I didn't once have. But my sponsor, really, my higher power was just like, I needed help. I couldn't do this by myself. I believed that he was once like me, and he's not anymore, and he's going to help me. So the two of us were a higher power. So I sat down, did the 5th step, and man, like, after doing that, I had this lightness, like this freeing experience. I think
Yeah.
you guys can probably, did you guys feel
Sure.
that?
Yeah, well, I just remember reading the 7-step prayer after my fifth
Me too,
step,
yeah.
and it just like I thought the 7-step prayer was like the greatest fucking piece of literature in all of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah,
because it was what happened. What we read at the end of my fifth step, like we ran through 6 and 7 really fast, and I walked away from that situation just 7-step prayer. So I would like in a recovery house at the time, like telling these guys, I'm like, you don't know about the magic of the 7-step prayer. You know what I mean? I'm like, you really want to get better? You'll read that shit every morning. You know what I mean? It was the background on my phone for a year. And I just think it's that's the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, me too.
For
And
most
I say
of us.
that prayer is huge in my life today. But I remember, and again, it's one of those like kind of God spiritual moments that I can remember where I was sitting, what I was looking at, how I felt. And
How
I'm
about
like,
that?
yeah, and I'm like, that was where I felt like I'm on the right path.
That's life changing
Yeah.
when you think about it. When you say it that way, you remember where you were. You know, the exact
Yeah.
time that you kind of felt that.
And not knowing at the moment that this was going to be something that's burned into my memory for the rest of my life, but it was, and it was serenity. It was, and,
Dude, it's such a piece. Yeah.
and when I came into this, it wasn't about seeking peace and serenity. It was about, I need stuff. I need my life to look like everybody else's. It needs to meet the expectations that I have. And that's not what this process is. This process actually has been, my sponsor always called it a program of subtraction. It's stripping away all that bullshit. And then underneath of it is I'll become my God-given self, and I find serenity and peace in that. And then I can make my life how I see fit with, staying connected to this thing. So that was pretty powerful for
I
me.
also know you haven't mentioned this because I know that when this happened to you, you were in a recovery house, counties away from where you live now, correct?
Yes.
When you
sure.
finally made
I
it
lived
that far.
in
Because I
Bucks
was the
County.
same
I was
way.
in Bucks County, yes.
And I think that we got sober around the same time. You have much more time than me. You know what I mean? I had a little relapse years and years and years ago. But at that time, men and women went to these recovery houses where the culture
yeah.
of 12-step recovery was so fucking strong that if you were going to get it and you were even a little bit motivated, you were in the right spot to do it.
Yeah,
and that shit just doesn't exist anymore.
Well, no, I think it's shifted. I think we see there's really good treatment centers that have a housing component because
For sure.
I think
Buddy, I lived in a house where the guy looked me in my face and said, if you're not writing your fourth by the end of month 1, you got to pack your stuff and leave.
yeah,
It forced my hand.
it was very much sink or swim. I'll give you that.
I am a feared up individual. I will dodge that shit. When I really think about my relationship with the 12 steps, I'd sit here and look at it on the wall with you and I'd be like, oh yeah, 100%. But deep down inside, I'm scared shitless of that because I either A, don't think I'll be able to do it successfully, or B, think it will expose too much of who I really am to people like you.
1,000%.
Right?
Yeah.
I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
I couldn't go home. I wasn't allowed to go home. I had AMA'd from so many recovery houses and treatment centers. I had to make this work. I didn't have a choice. That fucking culture does not exist. And so the push of AA and 12-step recovery in sober living environments is not what it was circa 2012. It's just not.
I can't say one way or the other. I'm not living in these recovery houses. I do know people get sober in them. I know there's good recovery houses. I know there's a lot of bad
There's
recovery
bad
house
ones,
ones too. So
Lots of bad ones.
I think people saw these as a business model and said, "Hey, I can make a couple bucks off of it." But I've been around the recovery house world. I worked for them. I own them.
Yeah.
Anybody who comes into this business first mentality into the recovery space is going to fail. Like it has to be. It just has to be. It just has to be.
Of course.
It will shine through, and people this is an altruistic program. Don't get me wrong. People make money in the treatment world, and then all power to them, but I think they bring a genuineness to this that if you're not genuine, you won't
And
do
you can
well.
totally tell almost off the rip, even when you
Yeah.
walk in somewhere, what the motive is. Or
So what I'm getting is I think what you're referencing is like some of these disingenuous places but there's I definitely know some good recovery houses where like the message of AA
Yeah, I
is
know, but
derived.
dude, let
Absolutely.
me ask you
Oh,
a real
yeah.
question because we've had this conversation over the years several times, and I'm not saying anything against MAT. How many of the recovery houses that we got sober in allowed MAT circa 2012? How many?
Zero.
Zero.
No,
Zero.
I know.
And could you operate a recovery house in today's world and not allow MAT?
You can.
I promise you can't.
I know.
They've
of
all.
one
Who?
that,
Oh, sorry.
Well, I'm not. We're not
We're
going
not
to
going
put
to put
names
them
out there.
Sorry
Nobody-
about that. But like, it's very hard, and I've seen
They're
great
few and far
recovery.
between, but they exist.
I've seen
Yeah.
several have to close because they can't keep up with that
And I don't want to.
or refuse to.
I'm not
Right.
saying. Look, AA has had this shift over the years because of modern medicine changes, and cultural things changes. Like when AA started, an alcoholic and a drug addict came from two completely different walks of life. It wasn't the same at all. Nowadays, if you were to poll AA, I'm sure over 50% of their members had a co-occurring drug problem too.
Without a doubt.
That didn't exist 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
So the need for medical interventions, like, look, I used to be when I got into this space, like working in treatment, I was so dogmatic AA, like this is the way to do it, no MAT. But then I would get the same guy in treatment 15 times and overdose within a week and almost die every time.
No, that guy's a good
I'm
candidate
like, maybe
for
throw
MAT.
some methadone,
You know,
some
I
Suboxone
always
at
look at
guy.
it this way. You can't or you shouldn't just get on it. I believe you should qualify for it.
I agree.
If I had plenty of 18 to 20-year-olds coming to me saying, I just want to get on Suboxone. And I asked them, well, how long you been abusing opioids? Maybe 8-10 months. I'm like, you don't really qualify for that. You don't want to get on that forever.
And the guy's probably never been to treatment before.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
They just want the easy way out.
And I
so
wanted
it's like
that, yeah.
if you're a 30-year heroin addict, you absolutely need or may need to get on that medication assisted treatment because your brain chemicals have been like partially destroyed now because of that 30-year heroin addiction.
Yeah. And I think the word assisted is what kind of gets neglected a lot. A lot of
Right.
guys and girls want to just jump on the medication and only
Right.
do the medication, not
Exactly.
assisting
And not do any
anything.
sort of work. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I remember a guy. There was this guy, Art. I got to throw his name out there because he's very. I love to find this guy. He's got to be in his 70s by now. When I was in treatment, like one of the last times, I wanted to just jump on Suboxone and not do AA. And he's like, pulls me aside. He's like, dude, he's telling me like I shot heroin for X amount of years, and like I didn't do that shit. I know you're tough enough. You can do it. And I'm like, something along those lines.
Eight
And he's like-
challenge
he's like, I'm like,
It was
I'm
a
like,
challenge.
I'm like, this fucking guy knows how to talk to me.
Did you want
So-
Rick to do anything?
I
You
didn't do
challenge
it.
him.
And I always think back to that because if people have to go the MAT route, I have no opinion. I'm not
Yeah,
judging
that's
it.
fine.
To each his own. But I would not have experienced the spiritual experience that I had. I would have been cheated out of that if I would have jumped on Suboxone because from knowing me, I probably would have stayed on that for a very long period of time. Now, I was on it in my active addiction, but when I really got into recovery, I think...
But that's what
yeah.
brings me back to my original statement because I can look at you and 10 of our friends that I all knew within their first 2 years of getting sober. And what do all those men have now? They have families. They have
Exactly.
fulfilling real lives. And I truly believe, and I'm saying this, I'm call me radical. I truly believe it's because of the culture of the sober livings that we went through in that time period, in this area.
Yeah.
Because we're all still friends. Those are all still my closest friends in the world because they're the men that were alongside me when I did the most amount of work that I've ever done on myself in my life. It's an intimate, like, real connection. So are you. I know you are. Your closest friends are still some of the dudes you got sober with.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I think, like, so for me, it's weird. Like, over the years, how I measure this thing has shifted a lot. And, like, now... Over the past few years, it's been more steady with, like, I measure quality of life for
Yeah,
people. Like,
Absolutely.
same.
Like, do you have a sense of community and purpose within your life? Is it not just like a self-delusional quality of life? Like, oh, I make $1 million a year, but you're dead inside. Like, I'm not
Exactly.
talking about that.
Right.
But, like, so even with MAT, because I remember, I guess it was like 4 or 5 years ago, a guy was on MAT and asked me to sponsor him, and he was living in an MAT house. And I was like, I'd never done it before. I'd never sponsored a guy on MAT. But the goal was to be like a means to an end. So within like a year, you're supposed to use it as like a slow taper process. And I did it, and I sponsored him, and I watched him struggle in different ways because he was through his steps before he started his taper process. But the guy is off the MAT now and still sober. So like I have seen success stories in that, and I also know of guys that got on Suboxone and they've been on it for 10 years and they built families and they built lives and their quality of life is where they want it to be. So like, who am I to judge?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
So I don't want to be this big book thumper like some Jehovah's Witnesses and says,
Yeah.
you're cheating yourself out of the spiritual experiences of life.
Yeah.
Like you have to do
That's
that.
like
you
how
know,
I
like,
feel. I'm gonna be honest.
Well,
That's
with
like
the-
how
yeah,
I feel
but-
at my core.
You're kind of
But
coming off that
in
way.
this
I'm
podcast,
sure.
we all know that there's various pathways to sobriety.
I
You know what I
agree.
mean?
I
Even
completely
if it's
agree.
medication-assisted treatment, fine. But again, like you said earlier, it's the word assisted that we lose.
Yeah.
You sponsor a guy that's on medication-assisted treatment on medication, it's if they're still doing the work of the 12 steps, more power to them. As long as they know in the end they should have to taper off of that.
Yeah.
But as long as they go through the steps and experience the spiritual awakening, and like I don't care how you do it.
And I
you
agree
know?
with that, but what I'm getting at and what I am against is that maybe it's just my perspective. Maybe I'm a little jaded, okay? Is that I think that insurance companies have pushed this onto providers.
They definitely have.
Which have then taken the 12 steps, which saved my life,
Mm-hmm.
and put it in the back seat because there are people who walk out of treatment centers on meds and they're looking in their hand and they're like, this is my recovery. And
Right.
that's it. And their quality of life never actually gets that much better. They stay miserable, but they get to wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, and be like, still haven't
Yeah.
used.
Yeah,
You know what
guess
I
This is
mean?
what it's like.
And they live in their parents' basement for the rest of their life, and maybe their parents think that that's the best they're ever going to get out of their son or daughter.
Well, they're
You know
still
what I mean?
alive, right?
Because they're still alive. You know what I mean? And they're on these meds, but that's it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's-
and that's what I resent. Okay,
I
yeah.
do to a degree too. I
That's
think for
what I
insurance
It's the drug
companies,
companies that start pushing this.
that's
stuff.
what I
Yeah.
resent.
and it does. Like, a good thing about AA, and I do love it, but I think it's Appendix A or B in the back where it says alcohol is a disease, and everybody, and that's, I think it's I forget what appendix it is. Everyone's like, "Oh, great, see, it's a disease," and I kind of love that, and I hate it because when you label something a disease, now who becomes the authority on how to treat it? Before it was a spiritual condition,
medical
treated
community.
the medical community,
Right.
Yeah.
So at that time, you start to see treatment centers pop up, and you start to see, now the pharmaceutical companies are getting involved in it. And
Yeah,
I think it was needed, but then you also add another element of financial gain or financial or financial risk
It
mitigation.
becomes part of
like-
American capitalism.
It's,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
exactly
So-
what it is.
Yeah, so
Just like Purdue Pharma.
But
we
with
mentioned
that
that
being
earlier.
said-
They were, it was originally, I think it was designed to be that, stage 4 cancer, pain medication, whatever. Like
Oh,
that's,
yeah.
it had good intentions. And then they saw the profit that they could make and they just pushed the crap out of it and killed a lot of America.
But with that
Exactly.
being said, the literal first part of the big book is a statement from a doctor
the doctor's opinion. Yeah.
saying that in order for alcoholics to fully recover, they need to develop a spiritual connection with something
know.
bigger than themselves. And that's
Exactly.
what it needs to be. And actually, I've read stories where it literally was like he was scared to write that because he thought that the medical community would look at him as a quack.
Yeah,
But
they
he
would
just
shun
seen
him.
so many
Yeah.
cases that's just what he believed. I saw I think it was Shia LaBeouf's podcast, where he was like literally referencing the doctor's opinion. And he's like, tomorrow, if a doctor told you that you had cancer and you were going to die, and the only way you could ever beat it is if you went and cut off a dog's dick and stapled it to your head and walked around. He's like, you would get up and you would go around and you would look for a
Look
dog.
for a dog,
You know what
right.
I mean? That's what he says. And he's right, dude, because that's why the book starts that way. It's a doctor literally telling you the best
Yeah.
way we've seen men and women recover is by developing a relationship with a power greater than themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
A doctor said that.
It's also
what I
the
mean?
doctor's opinion. It
Correct.
wasn't doctor's literature. It wasn't the doctor's medical journal. It was an opinion. They wanted the medical community to give them validity to like weigh in on this. And I gravitated towards that because I'm like, what are the doctors saying about this?
Right.
Yeah.
And basically he was acknowledging there's something here, which I thought was really cool because in the beginning, it really was just looked at. You had the medical interventions and you had the spiritual way. And they didn't really touch alcoholism. Then it got meshed together. And there's been so much good that's come from that. And there's good from MAT and there's good from treatment centers. And I work in the treatment world. But, like you said, like you've seen some of the capitalism of it too,
course.
where things become money motivated, where I feel like there's a need for MAT, but I also feel like it's sometimes it's push for the financial element. So it's like anything, there's good and there's bad.
Yeah, it was also like such a stem out of harm reduction, which I could also talk about forever. You know what I mean? Because there was a point in time in like 2018 when the fentanyl like really like I wasn't addicted to fentanyl. Were you?
It wasn't
No, I never touched fentanyl. The dope I sniff was brown. You know what I mean? Like,
so white for me, but
it was white for me sometimes too. But like I say that because that's what it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And everyone was dying. I mean, people were dropping like flies, you know what I mean, because of the fentanyl. So, cue in harm reduction, cue in opportunities to push medication-assisted treatment.
And I get it. I mean, you have a lot of mothers. I've gone to tons of community organizations, tons of nonprofit like walks and overdose awareness walks.
Yeah,
and there's thousands of people there. It's heartbreaking. So if they can take a medication and their son's alive, there's hope if they're alive. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not arguing against it, but I think you and I came from the same school of thought around AA, and I was very much like in a sink or swim type of position. Like they threw me in the deep end. It's like if you accept spiritual help or drowned, and I accepted spiritual help. But I also did watch many of my peers drowned, and many have overdosed and died.
Oh, so many. I mean, how many funerals have we been to together?
Yeah, I've been to a couple with you. Yeah, guys that
we've
worked
been
for
to
me.
several.
Guys I worked alongside of.
Of
People
course.
have passed away and died. So it's tragic.
Like they say, they are such unfortunates.
Yeah.
Like the preamble says.
100%, dude.
Yeah.
They just can't get the concept.
Oh.
And they're very unfortunate because they pay the ultimate price.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, today, I still like, as much as I have 13 years clean and sober, it's funny, I get these conversations a lot. People think like, you still got to keep doing this thing. Like, you still got to stay at this, like, aren't you past it? And it's like, I don't know about you guys, but I can feel it deep inside of me that like, if I drank, I'm not saying I'll go off to the races right away, or if I use something, like I'm quickly going to be using that pretty frequently.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Shit's gonna get bad pretty
but
quickly.
the craziest thing for me is like, and I say this in meetings sometimes, dude, I've not had the desire, even the thought, it's just never come back. It just
Really?
hasn't.
Never. You don't think
No.
like, oh, wouldn't that be nice?
Not at all.
Wow.
Well,
so I've had that.
Not at all.
And
Ever.
also, the reason we kind of stay around the program is for sobriety. And I always have a different opinion on sobriety because, in my opinion, it's a state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
You could be, clear of all drugs and alcohol, but still not be sober because sobriety is a state of mind, in my opinion. And I could feel it over my 39 years of being clean that I had stages of not being sober because it was the feeling. It's almost like that dry drunk feeling
Oh yeah, of course.
that we hear about. So what do? You get back into the program so you regain your sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
You regain that state of mind that you're just talking about, that deep down feeling.
Yeah.
It's just my opinion, and some people
I think
argue
that's
with it, but it's a state of mind. You could be clear of all drugs and alcohol, but if you're not feeling it, then you don't really have that sober feeling. And sobriety gives you that peace.
I don't know who would argue that. I think that's very well said. I as you're saying it, I'm like having flashbacks to times in my sober time that I felt that, where I'm in sobriety, but like I'm suffering from the spiritual malady, or I'm not spiritual connected, whatever words you use. And that has happened. I mean, there's been times in my recovery that like I was probably like this close or an inch away from a drink, and
That's when you're not sober. You're just clean.
You're just dry.
You're just clean and dry.
now the good thing, kind of what Sam and I were talking about a minute ago, is we built really good foundations in our early recovery. So when I do get to a point where the bedevilments in page 52 are creeping up in my life,
Yeah.
I know where to go for the solution. And there's been times where I've read 52, I'm like, shit, that's me. I got to get my ass to a meeting, but I get my ass to a meeting,
Sure.
and I sit here sober today.
Right.
There could have been days where I didn't do that, and who knows what would have happened. So,
Dude, I'm just so blessed that I keep such a good circle that I don't even need to get to that point, that another man in my life will look at me and they'll be like, you're kind of fucked up right now, huh? You know what I mean? Like they will. Like last summer, I'll shout out a friend of ours. Last summer I was a mess. You know what I mean? Like I had was completely full tilt on Defect's character. Had been spending money irresponsibly, playing with my hormones. You know what I mean? Like I had been doing a whole mess of stuff. And my good friend Wes literally called me. He said, yeah, this isn't good. You know what I mean? He called me and said, this isn't good. You're fucking horrible to be around. You need to do something like this about this or you're going to lose like everything. You know what I mean? That's what he said. And he was right.
Yeah.
I had to call him back and be like, you were right. You know what I mean? Because my life did come to a head, just like it did back when I was drinking and using drugs. You know what I mean? And honestly, that shit happens to me like every 3.5 years or so.
Yeah.
I do something really stupid. The defects get caught up and I get to come back to AA and I'm like, oh my God, that's right.
Yeah.
I still have this thing that causes me to act this way. Thank God I didn't drink.
Yeah, you
Thank
don't have
God that
to-
was never even an option. Like
Right.
the reason I'm really blessed is that it was never even really came across me to drink. But to be honest with you, my quality of life at those points and times is almost as if I did. You know,
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't
almost
have
as if
to
I
be-
did.
I've been there.
You don't have to be drunk or high to lose everything.
dude.
When you lose that state of mind, you go back to what you were, except you never enjoyed the high or the drunk.
Yeah.
You just get the bad feeling.
Well,
just
yeah,
do.
you lean into character defects, and I think because I know you very intimately, like we've known each other for years. Like we get caught up in the successes, keeping up with everybody. Do we
Yeah,
have
of
as much as
course.
everybody else? So
Yeah.
like that becomes our new alcoholism, becomes workaholism or things like that, or being about the material stuff. And that you can find just as much sickness in that. So it's like, great, I haven't drank or used a drug, but am I truly sober? You know?
Right.
I couldn't agree
That's the
more.
thing.
That's
Yeah.
why I
And-
think we need to measure this thing by like almost a daily basis.
Sure.
Like you really
I wish they talked about that.
I wish they
somewhere.
talked about that in the book. Yeah, but like it's not even not drinking a day at a time. It's like how connected to God am I today? You know what I
Nah,
mean?
you're right.
And that's how I need to measure it today.
Well, I had, like me, always having unrealistic expectations. In my sobriety, I thought, I know the viewer or the listeners can't see this, but it was almost like a ski lift, like going straight up. Like that was going to be a progression of my sobriety. And it's been anything but that. It's been a roller coaster ride. It's like I go
same.
up, I
That
come
means you're
down.
human.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
But I didn't want to be human. I wanted to get, wow, I got this spiritual connection after my fifth step.
You wanted
I
to
just,
be the best.
sky's the limit. I'm going
Right.
to be the best AA, or I'm going to go out there and conquer the world.
Right.
And it hasn't been that. And I think, because I'll have guys I'll sponsor and they'll fall short in 10 and 11 and they'll judge themselves and feel like shit. And I'm like, yeah, dude, you're like 99.9% of the people in AA and NA, because it says it in the book, like we are undisciplined as alcoholics. And that is so true. Like I put spiritual disciplines in my life and I feel great. And what do? I stop and start doing things that the ego and I want to focus on. And then like Sam, I feel shitty and I'm focusing on the outside shit. And then I got to get back to some certain things. But some certain things I did right the entire time. It sounds like, Sam, you're doing it right. Is being honest, open-minded, and willing. Those
it,
three
brother.
indispensable principles. If I'm honest with 1, 2, maybe 3 people in my life about what's going on, they can call me out on my shit.
Right.
You know, and then I can kind of like course correct, get my ass back into an AA meeting and get back there. So,
You
thank
know,
God.
it's almost like people, they have the wrong definition of being rich.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I'm rich and it has nothing to do with money. It has
I feel the
everything to
same
do
way.
with happiness. And it took me 50 some odd years to actually get that concept that it's not about money. It's about family, faith, that sort of thing. And that makes me a rich guy.
I'll tell you that I admire you more than most men, not because of your home, not because of anything outside of your family dynamic. Your family dynamic, when I walk into your house and I see the way you interact with buddy, go to this guy's house for a family event, there's fucking 200 people there.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's huge. But just the way he is, like I went over there on a Sunday last week, all his kids who are well into their late 20s, early 30s, right?
Vincent's 30. He's
Vincent's
the
30,
oldest.
right? So they're all like on the other side of 25, before 30. They're all there for dinner on a Sunday.
That's awesome.
They just sat together and watched football all day. There's a pot of gravy on the table and a Caesar salad. And you could tell it was clockwork. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That to me, that means the world. That's all I want.
That's like
I just
a rich,
want my kids to hang out.
Deep
with me,
down,
dude.
that's all you
That's
want.
like
You know
a
what I
rich
mean?
feeling.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it takes sometimes, like for me, decades and decades and decades to actually come to grips with that. And it's not like I don't chase the dollar bill anymore. Of course, I'd love to have a few more of them, but I'm not going to go crazy risking everything trying to get a few more. You know what I mean? The rich feeling is, it's just that. It's a feeling. It's not what your checking account or savings account says. It's a feeling, and I got it. You know what I mean?
You got it.
And I love it.
Yeah, and it's something I admire about you, like wholeheartedly. You and your wife, like is the dynamic is what I could only hope my family looks like one day. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I think you have an amazing family now. Sam.
I
Great
do.
Family. So I think what I hear in Vinny messages like just a lot of great gratitude and appreciation for
Sure.
the life that he has. Like I know people with boatloads of money, they just aren't grateful, and they're in this the disease of more. They just need more and more and more and more. And I'm not hating on people. Make as much money as you possibly can, but if you can't bring gratitude into the equation and you can't be happy for what you have. Outside of my wife and my daughter, my life now, the happiest I was making like $11 an hour when I first got sober.
Right.
Same.
Sponsoring guys, living in a recovery house, just
Eating
like
peanut butter
holy
and jellies
shit,
all the time. Yeah.
great. My life was awesome.
I think
Right.
about that all
Yeah.
the time. I told someone the other day that if I could go back to my old sober living and play spades with the fellas for just like a week, just play
Right.
cards and go to meetings for a week, I would pay any amount of money I had to just do it for 1 week. You know what I mean?
But
Yep.
it's funny. So you look back and you think about. So I'm 41. I'm going to be 42 soon. Vinny's a little older than me, and I'm sure like as
Just
you get
a few
just
years.
a few years, you get you just learn different lessons through your sobriety and through life. So like I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I cared more about not a ton, but more about materialistic things. Like, is my house nicer than the last guy and the next guy? And like that. Since I've had a daughter and a wife, like I don't care about that as much anymore. But now my alcoholism can come into like financial security. Like, are we going to have enough forever? And it's like, and that fear sucks the joy out of appreciating what I actually have right in front of me that gives me the true wealth.
Yeah.
So as much as I'm stressed out about like work or finances or all those things, when I'm at home with my daughter and she just wants to play out back on the swings, I'm not present. I'm not enjoying life.
Nope.
Like being able to be present, push her on the swings and know that stuff will work itself out. You'll get it worked out.
And that's a regret. I mean,
Yeah.
and a lot of people like my age, I just turned 60. So a lot of people my age look back and they say, all I did was work. For what? Like I've had times in my life where I had tons of money and times where not so much. But now it's totally different. But you do look back and regret. I remember my daughter asking once, she was about maybe 7 or 8 years old, why is daddy always on the deck on his phone? Because of the line of work I was in, but I kind of put it first, which is you can't do that. But again, you don't want to have regrets when you grow older. So you take advantage of it, but it's really hard to clear your mind of all that when you're constantly thinking about, am I going to have enough? I can tell you right now, you're going to have enough.
I know. Yeah, and it's well said, but because it's like finding that balance. Because you got to go out there and make money. You need
Sure.
resources for your family. You need financial security and all those things. But a little while back, I got offered just an opportunity to kind of I would be making a lot more money, traveling, doing all these things. I'd be all over the place, and I look at my family. I'm like, it's just going to completely disrupt my quality of life. My daughter's not going to see me that much, and great, we're going to have more money. We have enough now. You know, like
Yep.
like I could go make a lot more money, but like I work 10 minutes from my house. I get to help my local community. Like,
Yep.
and I think I got conditioned this way early on, and I definitely broke this habit in recovery. Is that we think, oh, I'm going to make this much, or I'm going to make this much, and everything else falls into place, and it doesn't. Like the other things need to be prioritized, and then the money comes after the fact. You know, like
Yep.
don't go take the $500,000 a year job where it's going to completely fuck up your entire family life.
not worth it.
And think you're going to find happiness in it. I see that mistake get made a ton in recovery.
Yep.
Especially in the addictions treatment world that I work in. It's chasing money, but the happiness doesn't always follow.
Well, you know what it is when especially in the addiction treatment world, sometimes, and I say this a lot too, that people don't lose the drug addicted mentality because they went to treatment and they're quote unquote sober. They get into this business and now they're robbing Peter to pay Paul and taking, trying to make as much money as they can. all they're doing is reliving
Yeah.
what they look like on the streets
100%.
Yeah.
because they haven't adopted the new mentality of sobriety and being happy where you are in the present.
Yeah, it's kind of the pros and cons. It's great that everybody in this space that works in this space has like a shared experience, and a lot of us have experience with AA and 12 steps, but a lot of it, their character defects are just running rampant.
Yeah,
in
there's
this
like a
thing.
lot of quote used car salesmen unquote in this
Yeah.
industry that will sell their grandmother's soul to place one more person in treatment so they can reach that bonus.
Yeah, it's funny. So I got into the actually working. I worked in recovery houses and did that and owned those. But when I got into like working in treatment, I guess like 10 years, 10 years ago,
Give or take.
I did the outreach thing because someone offered me a job. I'm like, wow, I feel like I made it in life. Someone gave me a good job, but I was very heavily involved in AA, and it was very difficult for me to reconcile the two. I felt like it cheapened AA, like I'm selling it a little bit. And I had to learn through finding good mentors, guys that were in AA that worked in this space, like guys probably like you that have been doing it a while, that just knew how to kind of like reconcile the two. But there are a lot of people that didn't have that. So I learned like there's an integrity you can bring to doing this thing where you put people first, do the right thing, do good customer service, because there's a genuine need for outreach positions.
Absolutely.
Like, I remember talking to my doctor. My doctor had no clue how to identify or get somebody in the rehab. So like there needs to be somebody educating those people. When their only motive is they're chasing down a bonus, because then that's a disease of addiction presenting itself in your job, and it's going to create a lot of harm. So, so yeah, it's funny you say, because I've watched that, but I struggled with that for probably 2 years. Like my home group was right around the corner from here. Not a single person knew what I did, because I'm like, I can't bring this into my AA life.
That's how it
You
has
It's
to
almost
be.
like a shame too.
There was
like,
like a- yeah.
possibly. And there's so many people out there that say the words, we're just trying to do the next good thing, a right thing for the next person. Meanwhile, they got two Corvettes. Their wife drives a Porsche that you ain't trying. You charge them $5,000 a day. You ain't trying to do the right thing for shit.
Yeah.
You're fooling yourself.
Yeah, I mean, and again, there's places that charge more than others, and I don't necessarily care what they make as long as they're doing everything right by the patient.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If
As
you're
long as it
getting your
becomes
patient from
patient
where
first.
they're here, and you're going to do everything you can to get them there, if you make $1,000 or $1 million in the process, I don't really care.
Right. You have
Just
to
deliver
do
what
it
you're
right.
selling. I look at us as ushers. We are ushers into AA, into 12 steps, or into whatever. It could be community, it could be church, it could be things like that. But we want to set them up on the right path. I've worked with a lot of great facilities, but within these facilities, 99% of the times, it is filled with clinicians that just genuinely care, that don't
That
know
is
a
so
thing
true.
about the business side of
100%.
things.
Yeah.
They don't know anything about the business side of things. And I want it to stay
I'm
that
talking
way.
about like the business development
Yeah,
side,
of
or
course.
even like the call center side, where if you get a phone call, you get a bonus. If you get
Yeah.
benefits,
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
You get a bonus.
And the owners,
it's
too, you know what I mean?
It's just endless. But when you get to the clinical side of it, I completely agree. You know,
But Sam and I came from a company that was pretty ambitious with getting people in treatment, and there was lofty goals, and that's what I said. I had to learn quick. Like I had to bring my integrity of AA and practice these principles in all my affairs, but still be a good employee and be successful in my job. So.
Yeah.
There was definitely some conflict of interest I ran into,
Yeah.
and I was in the upper management position where, like, I was the one, like, ugh, how do I do this? Because I can't be forceful. Like, guys, get the heads in beds. I can't live like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I also need to realize, like, okay, we need to put people in treatment in order to pay the salaries of everybody that works here.
Right. Sure.
So there's a
There's a
fine
fine
line
Sure.
that needs. There's a line that needs to be
I had to
struck.
completely separate the two.
yeah, your job is not your program.
I had
No,
to
not at
completely
all.
separate the two. And when I wake up and I put on my work shoes, like I'm there for work because that's what my job is. My job is to work. But the second, like, listen, the second that AA, the principles of AA make its way into my job, I drop any and all outreach or business development entities whatsoever. Like, I'll tell a guy to fucking kick rocks. I will. I'll do. Yo, you're not ready. You're not gonna do that here. See ya. I don't care. You know what I mean? Bye.
Who
Bye-bye.
I leaned
That's
on
it,
a
dude.
lot.
I have to. You have to.
I agree. No, I'm with
You
you.
have to.
So thinking of you.
Never in a
because-
million years would I ever 12-step another man in order to keep them there under some guise of a length of stay. I would
Right.
never ever do that because that shit would keep me so fucking sick if it becomes a gray and it isn't black and white or one or the other. And I had to figure that out like 6 years ago because
Well,
it had gotten
truthfully,
to a
I
point in
remember
time
where you
I'm
were
like,
6
this
years
is-
ago. You had a lot of people around you. You had good mentors in this space.
I did.
Where I look at clinicians. There's a lot of clinicians I know that are in recovery, and they need to put it in a different space. But now the good thing about clinicians is that there's oversights, there's licensing boards, there's a code of conduct, there's a way of doing things, there's people addressing this. Business development doesn't have that.
Nope.
Here's your business cards. Go get people in treatment.
Yep.
Do good at your job. So the ones that I see that get out of this alive and keep themselves unscathed and keep spiritual principles are the ones that find good spiritual mentors that also worked in the space. So you had some people before you. We had some guys that we both mutually used. But most, I'd say most, don't really have that. They're like, go get the job done. I've said this for like 10 years. I think the BD side of things should fall into some oversight licensing board because it's just kind of like the Wild West. Like,
Absolutely.
go get people in treatment and make it happen.
Yep.
And it's, a little dicey that way. So
100%.
yeah.
I feel like where we come from too, it's a lot more. It's so much more stand up and like there's so much more integrity on what we do in like the Pennsylvania area. And then like, brother, you go far west or you go far south, like it's disgusting.
Yeah,
to be honest with you.
It's pretty unregulated. Yeah. It's
it's like the Wild West, like you said.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for my experience though in addictions treatment. I think it's actually helped me a ton in my recovery because I was so rigid about my AA way of thinking, and it's kind of opened my mind to like you said, like all pathways. It's kept me open minded. So yeah,
I just make it my job. It's my job. My job is my job. My sobriety is my sobriety.
Yeah, you have to separate.
And the two have to be different things. And that's what makes it make sense.
But the interesting thing is you take your experience is your most powerful tool in both. So you have to use that tool. So when you're getting someone in treatment, you are using your personal experience and you're using not so
not
because
really.
it's the right thing.
Yeah.
But if you start like really like pressing and like you're falling into that salesman category.
Dude, I have like the most abundantly transparent conversation with people nowadays, and I'm like, hey, this thing is what you're going to make of it, okay? You are either showing up here today because you think you have to, or you can show up and you can do what's suggested, and I promise you, from my experience, you'll live a better life, but like, the rest is up to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I've been in more operations roles over the past couple of years, but I still talk to people and help get them in treatment, and it's never... I don't think it's ever been for me because I hate sales, but I'm a guy, ironically, I'm a guy who managed the quote unquote sales team for a large company, but I hate putting the sales word on this. We are having very matter of fact conversations with individuals, and that's what it should be. Hey, this is what reality of the situation is, man. If you keep doing X, in my experience, this is probably what's going to happen. They face reality. You know what? I probably should go to treatment. Now, if you're like bombarding them and calling them on stuff, hey man, we'll get you in, we'll get like you're trying like that is and that's a line I see a lot of people cross where they're just like overly aggressive, trying to like a cowboy get them with a lasso and pull them in. That shouldn't be what this is. You should be trying to nurture willingness of an individual to get them to enter treatment. Yeah.
Well, this has been fun, man. This was a great episode.
I knew this episode would be outstanding.
And Britt, we really, really appreciate.
We're done, man. I could have went for another hour.
I know,
right?
I know. Well, you have to come back on and see us again, because I'd love to have a deeper conversation with step work.
Yeah.
We get messages all the time, like the steps. Well, we're going to start working a little bit more on step work to see how you got through it and things like, or certain steps that were difficult. So we would love to have you back on to kind of, help people understand the step part of it.
Yeah, I would have loved, I mean, I don't know how much more time we have. I could go quick overview. I mean, that's what direction I would have went. We started talking about treatment some, but
that's all right.
I think a lot of us get into this process and we want to find that easier, softer way, and we balk at the 12 steps because it's so it's like mystical to us and what this is. And it was going through it was demystifying. It's not that. It's just facing reality. 1, 2, and 3. One, was I powerless? Was my life unmanageable? Yeah, I couldn't stop using. Every time I started, I couldn't stop. And if I could stop, by some grace of God, I went back to it. 2 and 3, if I don't have the power, but I believe other people got past this thing, there must be a power greater than me that can restore me to sanity. It was really that simple for me. You know, getting into 4 and 5, it's like we need to take a look. It is an inventory.
That's the work. That's where the real work comes in. You can agree to the first 3.
Yep.
Kind of get past them.
Yeah.
But 4 is where you start
Well,
ripping
I always say
scabs
1,
off.
2, and 3. You kind of nod at.
Yeah, you nod at
It's
it.
a
You just
nod,
agree to it.
You know what I mean?
But
And-
you have to be in full agreement.
Of course.
Otherwise,
well,
you
as I
shouldn't
said
go to
before
4,
earlier in
you
this
know?
episode,
Yeah.
like I actually think 1, 2, and 3 really should have like asterisks next to them, because if you look at them again after you're doing some work in 9, it hits.
Sure.
It's so different.
Sure.
They're your decision steps. You're not your action steps are 4 through 9. But I remember going through my step process and helping my dad. He was ran a service department for a car dealership, and we would do inventory on the weekends. And you take a look at all the shit on the shelves and say, okay, we don't need this shit anymore. It ain't doing anything. It's just taking up room and not serving us any purpose, and we can keep the shit that made sense.
Yep.
That's what 4 or 5 is.
Yeah.
You're gonna take a look at your life.
Absolutely.
I love
what
that.
are you leaning
That's a
into
great
that's like
comparison.
not serving you anymore, and get rid of it.
Yeah.
You know, and then 6 and 7 is kind of like leading you to, there were our survival tools for so long. Cheating, lying, manipulating, stealing, all these types of things that we leaned into in our active addiction that served us in some way, shape, or form, but don't serve us anymore. All they do is build resentment, fuel the fear, all those things.
Sure.
And they start to run our lives again. So it becomes, when we put down the drink and the drug, as we move forward, it starts to become more about the defects of character and how they present in our life and how we're powerless over them. And as we identify them and they crop up, like Sam said, 7-step prayer, that's probably the prayer I say the most.
Same. Still.
Sure.
Is that pretty regularly. 8 and 9 for me. I want to share, this was kind of, forgot, do we have a minute? Yeah, there was a powerful thing that happened for me, my 9 step. This is where I really saw God do for me, which I couldn't do for myself.
9 will humble you big time.
Oh, yeah.
So this was the step I didn't really want to do. I wanted to fight. I was like, let bygones be bygones. So when you do your step work, you do your now, maybe, never. If you guys did it that way, like who you're willing, you're gauging your willingness. So on my never list,
Around your amends.
around my men's, it's like,
that's how I
how are
always
you
did
will?
it.
What's your willingness?
The
look
easy
like?
ones, the middle ones, the hard
However,
ones.
whatever. 1, 2, and 3 bucket. So we're in the never bucket, and I'm like, I'm never making amends with these guys. And my sponsor's like, let's just let God take care of it. So I'm living in Bucks County, and I drive down this way, and I'm like, I'm going to go to this gym that I still had a membership to. And this guy who I got into, who was a best friend of mine, I got into a fight with an active addiction. I hurt him real bad, broke his jaw. It was like $1 million to 1 shot, whatever. One of my best friends growing up ended up hating me. I see him in this gym, and I'm like, by coincidence, he just joined the gym. So we're both there the same day, like a Tuesday afternoon. We see each other. We forget we don't like each other. Like, what's up, man? What's up? And then we're like, fuck this dude. We walk away from each other. So at this point, I'm in my 9th step, and I'm sitting there working out, and I'm.
Oh, it's probably killing you.
And
inside.
dude, and this voice comes back. This
Yeah.
voice is coming back, and it's my conscience. Like, dude, you got to do this. You got to do this. So I walk up to this guy in the gym, and I tell him what I'm about, and I make this amends. And there's guys boxing behind me. There's guys on steroids lifting weights, and I didn't give a shit. At this point, fear wasn't running my life, and I had a very real moment with a guy that was a good friend of mine, made an amends, and hugged it out in the gym because of this program. And that was one of my first moments of God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself.
Yes.
I'm like, you just follow the path and things just kind of show up for you, because I never would have made that thing happen.
Yeah, he put you two in each other's way.
Yeah.
So you could run into him.
Exactly. And that was powerful as hell for me. And that was we talked about the growth in the 5th step. That was my next leap into spirituality, was when I started to make the 9th step amends. And then, moving forward, and I could talk all day about sponsoring and helping giving back, but really that's where this thing sits. You can't just come into this, get sobriety, go make your life really good and not give back. I mean, really, and that's where I find purpose in my life.
Absolutely.
Never speak in a meeting and leave there and not feel fulfilled.
Absolutely.
Never sit down and sponsor a guy and not feel like I'm connected to the world around me.
I think it's almost watching a guy go through what I've gone through, which I've only been able to do a handful of times, but the worst is, how many guys make it to step 5 that ask you to sponsor them? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've had a lot of 1, 2, and 3.
Of
now.
course,
Yeah.
a ton of third step prayers, never hear from you again. But when you see it happen for another man, the way that it happens for you, it's almost better. You know what I mean? It
Yeah,
almost hits
absolutely.
just as hard.
Yeah.
But with that being said, we should save this for another time.
Yeah. We could.
Richard.
Yeah, there's a whole lot we want to discuss.
This was
And
a pleasure, brother.
It was great. We really, really appreciate you coming on to Tenacious Recovery, the podcast. Got to be tenacious about your recovery if you want to stay sober. And with that, my name is Vinny. I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
And I'm Sam. I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
I'm Rick. Thanks for having me out, guys.
My man, God willing, we'll see you all soon.